Welcome to Policy on Demand. I'm Sindhu Blume.
And I'm Scott McCandless. This is the week of July 10th, and this is your Monday briefing. Along with Congress, we were off last week for the Independence Day holiday, and we hope you had a great break. With Congress's return today, we're heading into a 3-week work period before their August recess. The main focus will be on appropriations ahead of the September 30th federal fiscal year end. But from a tax perspective, we'll be watching 3 things, including the Ways and Means Committee for a field hearing on trade, Senate Finance Committee activity on healthcare, and Senate Foreign Relations work on the U.S.-Taiwan tax agreement. We also will be seeing economic indicators this week around the consumer and producer price index reports. Sindhu?
Thanks, Scott. The OECD is expected to release guidance on its 2-pillar initiative later this month. Will Morris, PwC's new global tax policy leader, joins us to discuss what guidance is anticipated and how companies might consider responding. Will, welcome.
Thank you, Sindhu. I'm always surprised you invite me back, but it's great to be here.
And congratulations on your new role.
Thank you very much.
So, as I said, we are expecting, guidance on Pillar 2. What can you tell us about that, and what should we be looking for?
Right. So we expect that to come fairly soon. We're not exactly sure when fairly soon is. There is an inclusive framework meeting, which is the body which approves these documents at the OECD, which is meeting this week, I think tomorrow and Wednesday. It is possible it comes out after that, but we're also hearing that there are still 1 or 2 loose ends which may need to be tied up. So it's entirely possible that it'll actually be next week. There is a G20 finance ministers meeting coming up next week, and that is where these documents will get approval, but it may be there. In terms of Pillar 2, what we're expecting, a couple of things, basically. First is the Globe Information Return, and as we've discussed in the past, there are issues about how detailed is that going to need to be. Does this need to go below the jurisdictional level, the country level? Does it need to go down to constituent entity by constituent entity? Terrible tongue twister. Do they need to do that? You know, we know that a lot of countries would like to try and make it simpler. We know that some countries don't want to make it any simpler. We'll see how that comes out. We also know that there's going to be something on the QDMTT, the Qualified Domestic Minimum Top-Up Tax, safe harbor. And we know that there are still differences between a QDMTT as a QDMTT and the QDMTT, which has to be in the safe harbor, which is going to need to be closer to the Pillar 2 rules. So we're expecting that. We do expect to see a UTPR safe harbor. As you know, this is one of the issues which has caused political concern in the US. We're not sure how long that safe harbor will be or exactly what it'll look like. It may be pretty temporary. And then, maybe we'll see other things around safe harbors. We don't know about that yet. We also expect to see stuff on the substance-based income exclusion, which is essentially a reduction in the tax or something you can take against the tax for tangible assets for payroll. And then I think finally we're expecting to see something around foreign exchange as well. So quite a lot of stuff.
That is a lot. And Will, from a congressional perspective, there are a couple developments where we'd like to get your perspective. Sure. One is that the Joint Committee on Taxation issued a report saying that there would be large negative revenue consequences if implementation of Pillar 2 goes forward. The second is that the House Republicans are looking to potentially zero out U.S. funding for the OECD. Curious about your perspective on these developments.
Right. Well, so the JCT is the JCT. I think we all accept the numbers. It's in a sense that's not a huge surprise. You take away guilty, you look at some of the other things which are coming with Pillar 2. Yes, the US is probably going to lose revenue here. That's not a huge surprise. As far as the House is concerned, this goes back to what I was just saying to Sindhu, which is that there is a huge amount of political concern about this. Part of that is manifesting itself in, these possible retaliatory action should other countries impose a UTPR, but part of it is also focused on the OECD itself. And, essentially what the House is saying is, why are we paying for this thing, which doesn't seem to be doing us any good? Now, how serious is that? Well, it's serious in one sense, it clearly is. And, as the Ways and Means majority have shown now several times, they're actually very concerned about this. And, in a sense, they have reason to be. This is not going to be great news for the US fisc, and probably not great news for US business. Is this a this year thing? We'll see. I mean, obviously, it has also been taken out of the Ways and Means Committee, and will also, I think, be looked at in appropriations as well. I mean, that's a serious point. It's unlikely to get through the Senate, but again, it's a very important part of signaling here because, again, what I think the House Ways and Means Republicans are saying is we do not feel that the US has been adequately represented in this, and that we have not been listened to. And this is a very important part of sort of raising the voice about that. And there are indications, maybe the UTPR safe harbor, for example, that this voice is being heard.
All right. Well, we spent a lot of time talking about Pillar 2, but there is progress and development on Pillar 1. Can you fill us in on that?
Sure. So we're also expecting to see this multilateral convention Again, is it late this week? Is it early next week? We don't know. We are told it is very long, hundreds of pages, because there will be the treaty text itself, but there will also be explanatory materials, commentary, and that type of stuff around it. It is going to take time to digest that. And we also understand, again, this is one of the reasons why maybe next week rather than this week, that there are still some items which need to be sorted out before they can publish it, at least publish it in the way that they want to. Then there's a process of, obviously, it's open for signature. Well, I guess the G20 finance ministers is open for signature. And then who signs it? And does the US sign it? If they don't sign it, what happens? If they do sign it, it goes to the Senate, then what happens? I think we all know at least the short-term answer to that. So, there will be a lot of important stuff in here. We also expect to see Amount B, probably not as part of the multilateral convention. This is sort of the basic return on sort of marketing and basic marketing and distribution functions. We would expect that to be proposed as part of the change to the transfer pricing guidelines. This may not happen as a formal matter. We've said this many, many times now, but the impact of this is going to be huge, because what it does to the arms length standard, what it does to principles around nexus, how much connection do you need, the encouragement it gives to countries to move towards destination-based taxation, whether as a formal matter or an informal matter through transfer pricing, all of those things are going to be crucial. So this is a big deal. Yes, we focused on Pillar 2. We can't take our eyes off Pillar 1.
Well, finally, what's your advice for the U.S. business community as they look ahead to the possible release of further guidance this or next week?
I think I've just given it, which is that they should look at Pillar 1 as well as Pillar 2. But also, look at the details of this. Again, this goes back to everything that we said before about, have your numbers straight, do the modeling, figure out what it is you need. This is really pretty real at this point. For many countries, the income inclusion rule will come in at the end of this year, beginning of next year. The Globe Information Return is going to need to be done. And again, with Pillar 1, even if it doesn't come in as a formal matter, think about transfer pricing audits. Think about what other effects this could be. This is no longer a fire drill. This is for real.
Great. Well, thank you very much for your insights as always. Appreciate it.
You're very welcome.
And for our viewers, remember to tune in later this week for another Week in Review.
And thank you as always for watching, and stay with Policy on Demand for the latest developments in Washington and around the world. Take care.